Hello, everyone. My name is Tamika Lachey Morales, and I am the president of the Autism Hero Project. And I am super excited to unveil someone extra special that we have today with us. Dr. Temple Grandin. Now, for those of you who are watching this and have no idea who Dr. Temple Grandin is, I wanted to read to you her quick bio, which, by the way, she is one of my contributing authors in For the Love of Autism. That's Dr. Temple right there. And besides her being here live and in person, I wanted to read to you her bio so that you kind of get an idea of who this amazing woman and influencer in the autism community is. Temple Grandin is a professor in the Department of Animal Sciences at Colorado State University. And at age 3, she was nonverbal and had all the symptoms of severe autism. Livestock handling systems designed by Dr. Grandin are used all over the world, and half the cattle in the United States and Canada are handled in a center track restrainer system that she designed for meat plants. She also developed an objective scoring system for assessing animal welfare during handling of cattle and pigs. In 2010, Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world. Temple Grandin is also famous for her movie where she was featured in an HBO movie where Claire Danes starred as Dr. Temple Grandin. She's had several articles written about her. She's appeared in New York Times, Discover Magazine, Forbes, USA Today. She's also appeared in shows like Larry King Live, 2020, 60 Minutes, Fox and Friends, and has given several TED Talks. Her books, Animal in Translation, was a New York Times bestseller, and other popular books are Thinking in Pictures, Emergence Labeled Autistic, Animals Make Us Human, The Way I See It, and The Autistic Brain by Dr. Temple. Has been inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She has received numerous industry awards, including CEO World Magazine's top 10 college professors in the United States. Without further ado, I want to give her a really warm welcome, Dr. Temple Grandin.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the great welcome.
Thank you, Temple. So, Temple, I'm excited to have you with the Autism Hero Project today. And so, I wanted to kind of jump right in. I want to remind our viewers that the Autism Hero Project is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that seeks to prepare kids with autism for the world and prepare the world for them. We have a three-part mission. One is obviously we like to raise a whole lot of autism awareness in the name of acceptance, but we know that if it doesn't convict you at the heart to be an agent of change, then awareness alone is not enough. The second is we work with legislation and businesses to create inclusive spaces. And we know that inclusion can't come alone, and we need legislation to help us with that. But what makes us the most famous is that we buy medical insurance for children who are uninsured or underinsured, who don't have access to the therapies that they need to unleash their full potential. So with that, I want to dive right in, Temple, with our very first question. We know here at the Autism Hero Project the importance of early intervention and how it can really ultimately be like the absolute game changer for children. So we wanted you to kind of speak firsthand to the role that therapies can play with early intervention, and if you would say that any of that even contributed to your success today.
Absolutely. I was very lucky to get into a very good early intervention program by age 2.5. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of early intervention. I looked very severe when I was a little kid, and these kids need a lot of one-to-one therapy with an effective teacher. I want to define what an effective teacher is for a 3-year-old. More speech, better able to wait and take turns, and basic skills like putting a shirt on, eating with utensils. Eye contact's not one of them.
No, I agree with that.
Definitely not.
Those life skills are really important, yes.
And then later on, life skills. I'm seeing too many kids, smart, fully verbal kids, maybe doing well in school, never gone shopping, not learning bank account, don't know how to order food in a restaurant. just
Yeah.
basic skills. There's sometimes a tendency for parents to get too overprotective and the kid's not allowed to develop.
Oh man, that's so good. You actually wrote a good portion of that in the chapter on For the Love of Autism, and you gave some real beautiful examples of what your parents did in your childhood that really kind of helped you to excel, not in an academic standpoint, but just in the social setting, which we know autism is a social disorder. And so I think you hit on some amazing points. And how different do you look now that when you were 3 years old, when they thought, severe autism and what that looked like and how look at everything you've accomplished today.
Well, one of the things they did, 50s upbringing, they did a method I call teachable moments. So we'd have sit down family dinners. That's what was done. And if I stuck my finger in the mashed potatoes, mother didn't scream no. She'd say, use the fork. She'd give the instruction. Another thing that was done in our neighborhood, and it's a very easy thing to do, all the children, all kids, when they were 7 or 8 years old, when the parents had a party, you had to put on your best clothes, greet the guests, shake hands with them, serve the snacks, and talk to the guests. And that was
Mhm.
also really important. Now, those are two very simple things that any family can do.
I agree. I agree. Now, let me ask you a question. I think that there's a lot of people in our society, individuals and employers who don't have autism in their life, who may not realize kind of the talents and all the different things that autistics are just really good at, the skills and what they bring to the table. What would you say are some of those things so that our village of advocates can help be allies in helping to speak to that and the people who are watching today and how they can be a better ally with the talents and skills that autistics do bring to the table?
Well, when I was out working in construction all the time, installing systems I had designed, I worked with metal workers that were definitely on the autism spectrum. And one of the worst things the schools have done is taking out hands-on classes. Now, I just was down in Texas and they're putting some of that stuff back in. I know Massachusetts is putting some of that back in. But I know people where a single welding class, got their business started. Autism is a very big spectrum. It goes from someone who never learns to speak and has lots of severe challenges to Einstein. Einstein had no speech until age 3. Big, big spectrum. Also, people on the spectrum have different skills. We're all good with details, but some people are a visual thinker like me, what's called an object visualizer. Everything I think about is a picture. So the kind of things that my kind of mind's especially good at is art, photography, working with animals, and mechanics. And some of these kids that are addicted to video games, the fully verbal ones, you know how you can get them off video games? Car mechanics. And they find out that's more interesting than video games. Now, the other type is all the people out in Silicon Valley that do computer science, program computers, the mathematical side of engineering, music and math tend to go together, where my kind of mind's terrible at algebra. I'm very concerned that that's a barrier of entry, keeping kids out of something like a skilled trades class. And then you have the word thinker, super good with facts. They'll know every baseball statistic, or they'll know all the details of every car that's out on a lot at a car dealership. And their knowledge, people will appreciate that. Their talents we need. I'm very concerned about skill loss. The people I worked with back in the 80s and the early 90s installing stuff, people that had maybe 20 patents, they're all retirement age now. They're not getting replaced. I'm seeing too many kids today growing up that never used a tool. They're not getting exposed to enough different things to find out what they could be good at. And we need to be working on building up the thing the kid is good at.
Right. And the way to do that is by exposing them to a lot of things. And that's what we have to get them out to do.
You
I
have to
agree.
get them out doing things. That's why I did books like Calling All Minds and The Outdoor Scientist. Those were things I used to like to do as a kid. We've got to get them out doing things. Because when you look at how people get into careers, it starts with exposure, then mentoring. And I had
Amen.
great mentors. My mother, when I was young, my 3rd grade teacher. But then when I was older, it was my high school science teacher, and Ann at the ranch, and then Jim the contractor, who helped me to get my business started because he saw my ability.
I
The
think
other
you
thing,
just hit on something important. I think we need we need those coaches, those mentors, those people who are investing in us, who can see our potential. Autistics have so much potential. They just need people who can understand how to work with them and really bring it out of them.
Well,
Now,
one of the things that attracts mentors is seeing ability. And when Jim the contractor had seen some of my drawings, you see, that brings up the important thing of selling your work rather than yourself. I designed the front end of every Cargill beef plant in North America because I sent one of my drawings and a bunch of pictures to the head of Cargill. This was back in the late 80s. That's an example of selling my work, putting a portfolio out there. And you can do the same thing with programming. You could do the same thing with mathematics. Got to show
I
it to
think
the
that's
right person. Don't show it to the HR department.
So I remember I saw you in person at the Governor's University, literally the March before the pandemic hit. It was days before the pandemic shut down the whole world. And your talk was absolutely fantastic to see you. Like, I was in the third row, you were front and center, and I was excited. But I always remember the talk that you gave about going into an interview, and you were like, I knew that I was not going to be successful doing the typical interview back and forth with the guy. So you said you just went in and you opened up your portfolio and you were like, hey, let me just tell you what I do. And you kind of went through your whole designs. And that was the impressive part, that
Well, you
you
just
were
put the
able to
portfolio on the
advocate.
table. There's one of my jobs. This is in my book, Thinking in Pictures. And there's a
That's right.
drawing right there. Just lay the drawings on the table. That's what
That's
I did.
right. Exactly. And, we have to be able to learn how to advocate for our children, and our children have to learn how to advocate and use their work to speak for themselves. And then I want to ask you, I know autism awareness has changed a lot since you were diagnosed at the age of 3. You have a birthday coming up, and by the time the gala comes, your birthday would have just passed just by a month. And so you're turning 75 years young. So
Yep.
I'm sure that you've seen a lot of changes in the world in the name of autism awareness and acceptance.
Well, there's a
Can
lot
you
of things
share?
that are improved, but
Yeah.
I'm concerned that some parents and some teachers get locked into the label, because a lot of the people I worked with, they would have been the Asperger type. I know they don't use that term anymore, where
Right.
it's socially awkward with no speech delay, but they learn stuff in shop. I have grandfathers coming up to me all the time that find out they're on the spectrum when the kids get diagnosed. And they're in a really good career. And where a diagnosis helps them is with their relationships. That can provide great insight. But I'm saying with too many little kids, the amount, I hate to keep bringing up shopping, but the amount of kids and teenagers who've never gone shopping, it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. The value of money and buying and
Well, I
exchanging.
learned that when I was 7 and 8 years old. And I'm realizing how important that was. 50 cents could buy a lot in the 50s. 5 comics, 10 candy bars. But if I wanted a
Not today.
69-cent airplane, I had to save for 2 weeks.
Mm.
You
The
see, I
power of an
learned
allowance, the power of learning how to save.
learning what different amounts of money will buy. And I'm sorry I interrupt. This is a problem I still have. I can't get the timing right because I got a slow processor speed. And that's why I interrupt.
That's okay.
Okay.
So I would say, if there we're going to wrap it up with 2 things. One is, what do you think is the biggest area that we need to work on to change the world in regards to autism? I'll ask you that one first, and then I'll ask you the very last one after
Well,
that.
that's almost too general because I have to divide it up into early intervention, then school age, and then the transition to work. Too many kids are not learning working skills. And that needs to start with chores with little kids, volunteer jobs at around 11, and then real jobs as soon as they're legal age.
Now,
And
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but what would you say to the parent who has a child that needs a lot more supports?
but even, okay, you have kids that need a lot more supports. Maybe they don't speak. Some of those can learn to type. But even the ones that need more supports, maybe the child can learn to put the jacket on. What you want to try to do is stretch them. Some of them are underestimated on what they can do. Slow transitions are always best. You don't want a kid graduating from high school and then, okay, now we do something about a job. No,
Right.
they need to be learning that skill way before they leave school how to do a task on a schedule outside the home. And let me give you a couple of tips. Long strings of verbal information don't work. I can't remember it. Any task like closing out a cash drawer, give me a pilot's checklist of the steps to close out the cash drawer. Don't make me remember that verbally. Also, vagueness doesn't work. Just have to be really direct, right to the point.
Very good. And those visual agendas really work step by step. The
That
visual
helps. And multitasking jobs, I recommend a busy takeout window. Absolutely not. Too much multitasking.
makes sense. And then if there was one message that you can send to the world, anything that you would want the world to know about autism, what would it be?
Well, people need to have purpose in life. You know, when I was a bored high school student and didn't want to study, my school put me to work running a horse barn. I had to clean 9 stalls every day. So I learned how to work, but I also was proud of the fact that I was responsible for taking care of the horse barn. People need purpose, purposeful work.
That's awesome. I agree with you. Wow, Temple. Thank you for your pearls of wisdom. Thank you for taking the time to join us here at the Autism Hero Project. Thank you for spending a few 20 minutes or so with us. And I hope that I can call on you again in the future, Dr. Temple Grandin.
Well, thank you